The CEO Roundtable brings together operations professionals at the top of their game to define and explore what it means to be highly effective in a scale-up organization. And what sits at the heart of it is highly curated peer-to-peer roundtables where CEOs talk about things that matter.
I absolutely love my roundtable. We've been together for about 2 years, and without exaggeration, I have made friends for life.
To find out more, go to ceoroundtable.com. That's ceoroundtable.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Operations Room, a podcast for COOs. I'm Brandon Mensinga, joined by my amazing co-host, Bethany Ayers. How are things going, Bethany, this morning?
I'm well. I had our first company offsite this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. It was really good. We randomly had a voucher from a canceled or a postponed offsite from last year where the team were going to go to Serbia for 4 days, 3 nights, and then ended up having to postpone it because a large customer win came in and like too much of the team needed to be involved in that to go away for 4 days. And so we had this voucher to spend, and they really wanted us to go back to Serbia. Like, I think they might have owed the Serbian place some money. And there was just no way it was going to take 4 days out of the business. And also it was getting to Belgrade and then a 2-hour transfer to the middle of the mountains.
What? Who decided to do this? So A, why Serbia? B, why 2 hours out of the airport? And you have a voucher as a result.
Yeah. So it was like 7 hours of transport. So you're basically spending 2 days traveling in order to spend 2 days together. So we switched it to Brighton, and 1 night in Brighton cost the same as 3 nights in Serbia.
I can imagine.
But also, like, transport was way cheaper. So overall, net, we were definitely winners going to Brighton. Nice hotel, really easy for everyone to get to. We had quite the night out, or the team had quite the night out on Wednesday night. Like, I purposely went to bed at 10:30. 1, I'm just not much of a drinker anymore. And 2, everybody can have more fun when the boss isn't around. And like, 3 CEOs in 6 months is a lot for the team. There's a lot of change. Just let everybody blow off a bit of steam. But the blowing off a bit of steam meant that some members of the team did not go to bed till 4:30 in the morning.
What? And you have the offsite the next day, and they're going to bed at 4:30. Wow.
Like the second day of the offsite, yeah.
The second day. Okay, fine.
And the hotel was right on the beach. If you've been to Brighton, there's like a big road, and then we were the very first hotel there. And members of the team just had to go and get fresh air on a fairly regular basis. They were looking very peaky. They'd go get some fresh sea air for 20 minutes, come back looking fine. And about half an hour later, they were just collapsing again in their peakiness. I was just entertained. So the bulk of us were able to build our AI employees and test a bunch of technology and have a bit of not a hackathon, because everything that was built needs to be able to be used. But then there was like a handful of people who used the second day to breathe in sea air.
Okay. So pull us back for a second. So 2-day offsite, you're building AI agents. What is going on here?
So one of our OKRs for the quarter is to become an AI first company. And our key results for that is to have 50 AI employees in the business, and then have end-to-end automation in the go-to-market team and an end-to-end automation in the engineering team. Go-to-market have already done it, so we might have to make that key result a bit harder. And then on the engineering team, they have an idea, which is basically Linear will talk to Claude Code and fix small bugs automated. So you log a bug, and then Claude Code goes off and fixes it. So they're going to test that and see for a lot of like just the small, like simple ones. And then on the go-to-market team, we have built, I don't know, like the timings of these episodes, what Donna McCurley talked about in terms of figuring out, we have one agent that looks at what our best customers look like and goes off and finds lookalikes with the buying intent, that then writes personalized emails based on what good looks like, and then enters them into a HubSpot sequence. And then from responses to the sequence, it feeds the SDR.
That is super awesome. And then what are you using for the tooling to make that happen?
So we now have business ChatGPT for everyone in the team. And we are using in go-to-market a tool called Cargo, which is kind of like an N8N or a Clay, but specific, like it's like Clay in that it's specific to go-to-market. But from what I understand, it can also do N8N or Zapier type stuff. So even though it happens to have some nice plugins for like dealing with LinkedIn, finding lookalikes, different areas that it can search over, it also then just does automated workflows like any of these tools. And then we also bought Claude Code subscriptions for everybody in the engineering team. We had Cursor, and Cursor you can put different things in, but apparently Claude Code is just like, it's a whole new thing and it's way better. And it's not just the model that you plug into Cursor. What Claude Code can do is astounding. And we had training on day one, because I'm bouncing all over the place. So I can tell I'm a bit tired. So we are working on creating these AI employees and becoming an AI first company. And so we use the offsite to ring fence time for everybody to learn and explore. And so day one, before the fun letting off steam till 4:30 in the morning, evening, everybody was sober and not hungover and capable of being in training for the day. We did 2 training sessions. So the morning session was for the entire company. What do you call, not when you're the number one fan of somebody, like my idol?
You're a fanboy, a fangirl in this case.
I'm a fangirl, yeah, of Charlie Cowan, who's been on the podcast a couple times. Charlie ran his 101 and 102 classes on ChatGPT for the whole team. The most amazing feedback. Everybody in the team loved it, including the engineers, because I thought it might just be a bit basic for the engineers, but everybody learned, everybody loved Charlie's energy. And at the wrap up on the second day, multiple people asked if we could do quarterly training with him.
Oh, wow. Okay. Kudos, Charlie. That's amazing.
I have never had training in a company where people were begging for more training.
Yeah. Well, that's super awesome.
And we all just learned so much around what ChatGPT can do, all the different functionality, ways to approach it. He had a very safe environment. Lots of people would own up to mistakes they made or problems they were having. He gave different techniques. And then in the afternoon, the go-to-market team went and started building their AI employees, had a brainstorm on like what kinds of things could be built, what would be helpful in their jobs, how to build them, and started doing that. And the afternoon was a combination of Charlie and somebody else who's going to be a guest on our show soon, Ryan Fuller. And we did a more like workshop-y thing and more of a deep dive into Claude Code. But it wasn't as structured a format as Charlie did for ChatGPT. So I'm thinking for the next quarterly training, we do a deep dive on Claude Code, because apparently it can do stuff even for non-coders. Like Charlie's using it to run his strategy. Charlie used it to help him build his new website. Like the way that the structure is, I don't entirely understand, means that it's super powerful, not just for coding.
That's amazing. So then Charlie Cowan, 101, 102, the sessions up front for ChatGPT, this fellow doing more of a workshop on Claude Code in day one. And then you're doing a bit of like brainstorming with the functional teams around AI employees and having the teams think through how to build those things as part of the day one.
As part of day one. And then day two was building things. And then we all got together and there was a bit of a show and tell for anybody who wanted to show what they'd built and how they built it. So I built a demo planner GPT where you can drop in transcripts from your first meet and it will help you build a tailored demo. I put in the Sandler methodology, MedPick, another methodology on like what good demos look like, some of our transcripts anonymized around first meets and good demos. So it knows what good looks like, our knowledge base. So it understands our platform and how it works. And I can't remember a couple other things, plus the instructions. ChatGPT helped me write the instructions for the GPT on the structure of what it should look like, the questions you should ask, what the outputs are. And then when you drop in a transcript, It tells you a summary of the call, so who the key decision makers are, where the power is, all of the stuff that like between Sandler and MedPick you get. It gives you the flow for the demo, questions to drop in and pepper, talking points and which person to address because that was their particular need in the demo, a follow-up email, and a mini mutual action plan to get to the proof of value because it also understands our sales process. So it's like, so we need to do a proof of value in 3 weeks. Therefore, this step needs to happen. These are the owners, and it's ready to go that you can just share with a customer.
That's amazing. And then is this a folder in ChatGPT that you're using to do this, or?
So this is a GPT that I've used on this one. So a custom GPT that's just shared within Matomic, because now that we have the GPT workspace, you can publish things and everything can be available to everybody else. So can talk into the GPT and it has all of this structure, and then you get your own chat, and then that chat will have your memory in it of just your chat, whereas the GPT doesn't get affected by other people's memory, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Shareable custom GPT, you can do your own work in there. It maintains a memory persistence thing whereby it understands your context specifically, but doesn't pollute others with yours.
Exactly, because it's in like a separate chat with yours, but the GPT itself has not been polluted by your content. And it can also, if you're doing a first meet, you can give a little bit of background and ask for questions to make sure to ask so that it'll give you a good tailored demo for the second meet. So that's what I built. And then I'm in the process of building a CMO for us using some content of somebody online that Charlie recommended. Our CSM team connected all of their different like HubSpot plus other spreadsheets they have of all kinds of data. And they can now query when a renewal's coming up, what's our forecast, what are my actions, which QBRs do I need to do? And also it goes and looks at the news for your customers. So it can give you actions plus news that you need to know about, like in the outside world, and little snippets to share with them.
In retrospect, what's your sense of the value of the 2-day session itself? Would you have done anything differently? Do you think this is really the springboard to achieve your OKRs and be AI first?
Oh, totally. Like we needed those days of time outside of your day-to-day work to just open people's minds, and the training. Because actually one of the things that I learned that I wasn't expecting is I tried the ChatGPT voice mode before, and it was quite slow and didn't feel like a human. It's massively improved. So Charlie demoed it. And then yesterday in a one-to-one with an SDR. So we've created another custom GPT that is a cynical CISO. So we've done like a persona of a chief information officer, and we run all of our content through that to make sure that we are not too salesy, that we seem credible. And we just flipped that into chat mode, said, we're calling you. Here's the first pitch. How can we make it better? And because ChatGPT is always very sensible, it's like, oh, well, that was a really good pitch. These are, some notes I'd have on how to improve it. And it came out with like just an excellent pitch, and it feels like an actual person. So you can really practice your pitches. You can practice going out to investors. You can practice everything. Charlie and I were chatting this morning, and he'd had another training session with another team of execs yesterday, and they're going out for fundraising, and the CEO, they built a grumpy investor, and we're just practicing pitching to a grumpy investor and like what landed, what didn't land, what would be better ideas. Amazing for anybody who's doing human stuff, like how to practice without having to be on other humans.
I think one of the things that I'm thinking about right now is this question of time and space to like think about this stuff, because I feel like in my current company and previous companies, the day-to-day grind of getting stuff done and what has to get done for the business doesn't allow you to have a lot of extra space and capacity to think about different stuff, and in particular for AI, to your point, it takes a bit of time and effort to think through, like if we wanted to do something here properly with AI employees or what have you, or for myself or for the team, it requires space to do that. So this idea of doing a proper offsite in the format that you just talked about feels like that's almost like an instrumental linchpin to like get everyone's mind in the same place, get the training there to enable them to be successful creating these employees and set yourself on an actual path.
100%. Because also like so many times companies waste days on hackathons And like, it's quite nice to have a hackathon because you can experiment, but it all ends up just being shelfware. And so it was like, this was not around experimenting. I mean, it was because you're always going to get better, but it needed to be things that would actually make your lives better tomorrow and figure stuff out. And also like playing around with AI employees, but also playing around with or taking the time to get our HubSpot data better, get our dev environment faster to move. Like there's almost ring fencing time to slow down with all of those things that, if you do, you'll speed up, but aren't quite bad enough. So I think we're going to do this at least quarterly. Like it might not be an offsite every time, but ring fence time to slow down, to speed up, specifically around AI and automation.
And then the overall mindset and motivation, morale, enthusiasm of the company now with this AI first mantra that you've brought to the company. Can you sense a real momentum now off the back of this in the sense that folks are really enthused and excited to move forward with it?
Yes. Obviously, like my hesitation is just that there's always a spectrum. You have some people who have 100% embraced it. We have one engineer in particular who's just like, it has opened his mind and he is doing so much. And you have others who are still a little bit skeptical. Like they're into it. They're not defensive, but they're not as like just totally excited. And then on the go-to-market side, I would say it's similar. Where for some people, there's just a click and they're just like, this is amazing. And for others, that click hasn't 100% happened yet, but they're curious, want to see how it goes, and just need a little bit more support to have that aha moment.
Here's a thought that I was having the other day. So there's another CEO, a friend of mine that works in a organization. They're currently doing fundraising, and they've put together their financial forecast that they're shopping around with investors in terms of here's our revenue, the assumptions, here's our budget, and so on. So that individual has effectively shaved outside of the classic B2B SaaS scaling for headcount that we had previously. They've shaved off, let's say, 30%, 40% of the headcount. They've taken that cash and mostly put it into a line item called IT software. So per person, per GTM person, per developer, allocating a spend amount annually for individuals in the company. And the amounts that are being put into that line item are quite significant. We don't know exactly how much is the right amount right now, but just from a forecasting standpoint, let's just take some of that headcount spend, reallocate it to this line item for the time being, with really not knowing how the future is going to pan out. But let's not minimize the potential cost that might be associated with, significant token spend, as it were, in particular for developers as they kind of start using tooling quite aggressively going forward. What do you make of that?
I think it's wise. I think it's also generous. Although it would future-proof you because everything right now is a loss leader. Nobody's making money and prices are going to have to go up. And as people move into the enterprise, prices are going to go up. I'm kind of hoping that the enterprise will subsidize the startups. I would say it's probably wise to forecast a bit more spend so that when the prices do ratchet up, you have the money. So it's like we have just bought Claude Code for everybody. Right now they have 3 subscriptions. They have a £20 one or $20 one that you apparently run out of within seconds. A $100 one that seems to work for most people, and then a $200. And we've gone for the 100 and see if that works. Otherwise go to the 200. With the API calls, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. At least there'll be enough money. I think on the go-to-market side, it'll clear out a bit. Like right now, there's so many tools coming in, and I think quite a few of those tools will come back out again. And then I also think that ChatGPT or OpenAI will end up building a lot of things that let you consolidate.
Yes, I suspect so.
If I were a note taker, I'd be very worried.
So we have a topic for today, which we are talking about right now, which is AI employees. We have an amazing guest for this, which is Matt Lhoumeau. He is the CEO and co-founder of Concord. And we had a long conversation with Matt around contracting for companies and a bit of a chat around CS. But the interesting bit that we spoke about was about AI employees and what Matt is doing in that respect. So before we get into the AI employees piece of it, is there any thoughts just on his other bits that he talked about related to CS and contract management?
I guess on the contract management part, I think I will at some point have a look at Concord, their technology, because how much do we actually need lawyers for contracts? versus how much can we use AI. And they've basically created a system where you can do a lot of your contract negotiation via the platform and then also not lose all of your contracts. I haven't tried it yet, but we don't have a lawyer in-house. As we go up market and are dealing with larger institutions, having somebody help us review contracts for standard ones seems like a good idea.
Right now, for commercial contracts in my current company, we're just about to kick off a process to make this as friction-free and as fast as humanly possible, leveraging tools and a revised process. And, right now we've been using a lot of human legal powers at work to make modifications to contracts, but it's all been very sloppy, I think, in the sense of just relying upon a person to inject themselves to make these changes and not really thinking through how to make this a friction-free process that is much, much faster and doesn't lean on that person so much. The interesting bit is here in the UK with some of these providers, there's some good providers out there we've mentioned before, like Harper James and so on, where they're very SaaS friendly and they have subscription models whereby they're actually reasonably priced, I think, to be honest, like really good value. Talking to this woman in the US, I don't know if this is just like a US thing overall or just her specifically, but immediately after all this scale up talk, we went into, what is your business model? How do you charge effectively? We charge by the hour. So it's very transactional, hourly based. And by the way, it's 750 US per hour. That is a lot of money. So let me get this straight. You're scale up focused, SaaS focused, and you have this legacy old school business model charging hourly. It defeats the entire purpose because we want fractional embedded time consumption where you are representative as part of our company. And we would like to pay you in a way that is not transactional.
Sounds like you really need to talk to Matt, given that you're streamlining everything and you're looking at using, and how much of it can you use for AI? Well, so after this, I think you and Matt need to have a conversation, basically. So our conversation with Matt was for me wildly valuable because I had never heard of the concept of AI employees until we chatted with him. And obviously it has changed my worldview and it has meant that these are the OKRs that we're having and Concord are ahead of us on doing it. And the productivity that he's seeing out of his team is astounding. And he's also a bit further ahead than us in that he doesn't have a CMO and a CRO anymore. He has go-to-market engineers. There's definitely a lot of hype around go-to-market engineers. I've seen it on LinkedIn. It's the job of the future. And then for some people, it's already the job of the past and proven wrong. So I think the verdict is definitely still out for it. But what is the role of management in the future when everybody has AI employees and live coaching is interesting. The SDR was getting way better pitch coaching out of the voice mode of our CISO GPT than from me or from a sales leader.
I think one of the ideas that Matt had introduced was that the role of a manager, an actual human being in this case, being a manager, becomes much more about being a systems owner and not being a people coach. That the people coach is actually left to the AI part of it, which is ironic in some ways. But as a systems owner, your job is to create AI employees, to onboard them, contextualize them, train them, iterate them to make them better, give them performance reviews, give them kind of OKRs and results that need to be achieved and so on. Taking the time and effort to not just do a one-off kind of GPT prompt, but in fact, caretake a given GPT employee to get the most out of them. That whole mindset shift is kind of what he had spoken about. And in particular for creating coaches, I can see that, being quite effective.
Yeah. So there's 2 points to make. One is, I think we need to be careful on what we talk about for coaching versus in a school context, they call it pastoral care. So the check-ins that you're doing okay and maybe not coaching on figuring out a problem at work, but the human contact. And I think that's still going to be important and it shouldn't be outsourced to an AI employee. As a CEO, I'm worried about what's the morale like? How do we bring the team together? When is it okay to let off steam? It's not just tactically, how do I make a phone call and do a pitch, or this deal is stuck, how do I unstick it? I think those things we should outsource, but we shouldn't outsource the emotional care of our employees.
So the coaching that we're referring to is really technical skills, competence coaching, as opposed to more of the employee broadly speaking, around their lot in life and their concerns and their kind of challenges that they're having, is your point.
And I think that there will be people who want to do that, because you have people that are using ChatGPT as a therapist. You have people who are bonding and having it be their best friend. But in a work environment, I think it's dangerous to lose the human connection. And even if difficult conversations and forming bonds with humans is something that not all managers want to do, I think it's important for a business to work well, for those human bonds to still be there. And then the second point is around managing AI employees. And it's one of the things I've been thinking about. And I'm going to do some training and some process at work, because basically everybody's going to have to become a manager, and not everybody has managerial experience. I was listening to a podcast where I can't remember, Deloitte, Accenture, somebody had done a thing about AI adoption within the enterprise. And it was like execs had the highest adoption, then middle management the next, and then junior people the least. And like part of the methodology is you don't know if junior people are genuinely not using it or lying about not using it, because they don't know what they should use and shouldn't use. And so it's just safer to say they're not. So there's probably an element of that. But then there's also an element of senior people and managers understand the art of delegation, understand what can be delegated, are very good at giving precise communication. So part of it is people not owning up. But the other part of it is I think that it's actually easier for senior execs and managers to adopt AI, because it's a lot of the same managerial skills. You understand what you can delegate, what you can't delegate, very good at giving precise instruction, very good at giving feedback when the instructions aren't precise, good at asking clarifying questions. And those are all the things that you do in order to get good results out of ChatGPT. And so one of the next things that we're going to do at Matomic is a training session for everyone on how to think about delegation, how to give precise questions. One of the great things about AI is it doesn't have feelings. So you don't have to do like, that was really good, but why don't you think about this instead or in addition to what you're doing? You can just be like, no, I said this. Why do you keep doing this? Walk me through your reasoning and it'll explain why it's doing the wrong thing. You're like, no, this is what I asked and this is what I mean, and do this.
So I think this is a fabulous point, and a point I haven't really heard before, which is you're right. Every single employee in the company, regardless of their level, has to be a manager to be able to manage AI employees.
And not everybody's had that experience yet. So that's part of training that I'll be doing rather than bringing somebody in. And then the next stage after that is to think through the way that Matt has performance reviews, OKRs, job descriptions for your AI employees, so that you actually have a high performant team rather than a team that goes a bit wonky.
I'm thinking back to our previous conversations before you entered Matomic and kind of these AI chats that we had. And I feel like between Matt, the inspiration of Matt, and now what you've actually picked up here, if you're thinking about an entry point in your company of where to start with this stuff, where you're moving past just using ChatGPT as a bit of a support mechanism for one-off prompting, which we're all doing right now. But really the question as an operator of how you take this and do something that is much more durable and evolved within an organization to really transform it, as opposed to this one-off stuff that we're currently doing, this entry point of the mindset and the idea that these are AI employees that need to be onboarded, contextualized, measured, and so on, is maybe the key mindset distinction of the actual way in which you can take this AI stuff in a company right now and set yourself on a journey.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's all over LinkedIn and we might be a bit late, but then in reality, when I speak to people, nobody's even like, my husband has to keep reminding me that I'm an early adopter.
Yeah, I think I might be deluding myself here, but I feel like you are ahead of the game. I think there's very few Matts that are out there that are doing this stuff in a very earnest way.
I hope so, because this is going to be our competitive advantage. And now I'm sharing it with everybody else, but it's around how you actually do it rather than just the ideas.
So let's move on to our conversation with Matt Lhoumeau, AI employees. We are revving up the engine of the podcast and looking for a great brand to sponsor the show. We have over 7,000 listeners now across COOs, CEOs, founders, and operational professionals who are decision makers for all kinds of technology, including HR, planning, strategy, legal, and other tools.
It's Beth here. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the podcast, and we'd love to keep it going, but we're going to need to get some sponsors in order to do that. So if you work at a company that could benefit from speaking to listeners like you, or know of a company that might benefit, please send them our way.
To find out more, go to operationsroom.co/sponsorship. That is operationsroom.co/sponsorship.
Have you seen an increase in productivity per AE? And by productivity, I mean how much they are selling, like how much ARR they're selling per head.
Yes. Just to give you some numbers, but basically I gave the goal to all our departments in the company to be able to do at least 3x productivity over Q1 and Q2 of 2025. We reached the 3x productivity by March, basically. And so right now, whether it's on the sales side or on the developers, for instance, we're more in the 5 to 6x productivity. And currently what we're doing is we're actually starting to hire a bunch of AI employees. And we're really calling them this way. They actually have a job description, and we even give them a name. And so this is important because we're trying right now to really let our company not start using AI as a tool, but more to partner with AI. And I think this is an important distinction that people need to start making, because AI is not a tool. If you're just using a tool and you expect to have the result that right away, it's not going to work. If you want to use AI well, you have to consider AI as an employee, meaning that you can hire the best person on the market. If you need to onboard that person, you need to make sure that person has all the context of your company, of your deals, of your offering. And then you need to do performance reviews with that person, making sure that they're actually delivering on the job. And if not, making changes in the instructions, etc. And so it's interesting because since we started this initiative, we've seen that the use of AI has changed, the understanding of it has changed, and we're starting to get better and better and better results at this. And we're just at the beginning of it, right? So my personal goal right now is by the end of this year, I was telling you we're on the 5x to 6x right now, depending on the teams. I think we'll be at 10x compared to the beginning of the year as we start wrapping up more and more with new AI colleagues for everyone.
What tools are you using?
Basically just Claude and ChatGPT.
And then any automation like Clay or N8N or Zapier? Or...
Yeah, we have a lot of things behind this. But what's interesting is the NA8 and the others, we actually use them less and less because obviously the capacities of ChatGPT and Claude have improved more and more. You are able now to have sub-agents that can run. So there is a lot of things you can start doing natively. And I would expect, honestly, I think in August, ChatGPT 5 will be released. And I think we're probably going to see more and more ability for everyone to just do everything directly in their app.
How do you create an employee? Who creates an employee and then manages them?
Well, it's very easy. So it's whoever, think about it just as a normal employee. So if you have someone who's in charge of marketing, the marketing leader is going to say, well, who would hire? Let's say I have unlimited budget and I can hire as many people as I want. Who do I need? And it's very important to think this way and not thinking that with one AI tool, you can solve all the problems. No. Well, for the case of marketing, for instance, well, you probably want someone to write the content of your website. You also want someone to write the content of your emails because it's not the same type of audience. It's not the same format. And when it comes to emails, probably outbound versus your typical marketing emails, probably not the same skill set, right? And so you just want basically to divide these roles this way. Build a job description for them. Then you need to basically feed the AI with what we call internally blueprints, which is all the context of your company. So your offering, your customers, your segmentation, etc. And then you basically have to be a bit smart about the prompts, a lot of iterations. But eventually you get to a point where we can build content, for instance, for a new web page with just asking our teammates. So, we have Emily, and we tell Emily well, I need a new page for this feature we're launching. That's about it. And Emily just dropped the page. And if she has questions, she will ask us. It's like a conversation with a colleague. And you'll be surprised by the quality of the result when you really spend time onboarding well your AI tool.
Bethany was just talking about the fact that product marketing is going to be replaced by this essentially. And my argument back to her was that I think there's always going to be that human top up of it's going to be, it always gets to a point where it's still not quite fit for purpose, basically. And somebody has to look at it with human eyes to really right size it for whatever purpose that you have. And Bethany's response to that was, well, that's probably not going to be the case going forward, Brandon. I need to hire Emily, the product marketer, here in ChatGPT. Here's a tremendous amount of context, blueprints, whatever you want to call it, to get them in a space where they're highly targeted, and then feed them your requests that you have for product marketing purposes. Give me a copy for the website or positioning or whatever, I guess, in that case. That's essentially what you're doing.
Exactly. And I think product marketers, many roles like them are in danger. But I think, what does that mean for them? For if someone tomorrow is a product marketer, what should you be doing? What you should be doing is really understanding how to build these AI colleagues, because this way you own the system. And you will always need someone, at least for now, I hope for the next 5 or 10 years, to actually build that system, because you do need to onboard that employee. You do need to just give them the philosophy of your company when it comes to the voice and things like this. It's not something that the AI should choose. We still have human beings to do this. And I kind of tell my teams this is basically today now, as they start working with these AI colleagues, they're basically their own little VP. It's really what it is. They have a team of sometimes 5, 6, 10 colleagues that will be able to run different parts of their work, but they still have to coordinate all of this to make sure that the work is done according to the standards of what we want. And so they become managers. It's just not real people. It's AI colleagues.
And so are you using projects for each colleague as a project, in effect?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way we use it in Claude in particular, yes.
And are you using Gemini? Because Gemini was so bad, I didn't use it. And now I tried it the other day and it was actually quite good.
We use Gemini more on the product side, not on the go-to-market teams. Yeah. Yeah, it's changing. And probably Gemini is going to be updated very, very soon. So I think we'll see some progress. What's really exciting is, honestly, we've launched that recently, right? But we're also doing this because we know that within a month or two, new models are coming out. There is new options all the times and more things, right? ChatGPT just released a few weeks ago the new improvements for operator. And so if things are working today relatively well for us, I am absolutely certain, and within a few months, it would be probably even better. And so I think it's a question of jumping now on this, because it does require a lot of work to organize your context, to really understand how to interact with the AI. But if you do it now, then when models are getting better, you're going to be ahead of everyone. And that's kind of what we're trying to do.
But salespeople still need to close deals, right?
They do. And they should keep doing this, but they should not spend time anymore sending emails and follow-ups. They should not taking any more time to review an account or do discovery before a call. And they should not waste time in a meeting with a manager coaching them on their calls. That's the type of thing that they should avoid. I think the way we look at this is, whether it's our customer success team or our sales team, they should spend most of their time. And when I say most, it's 80% of their time in touch with customers, whether it's on a call, through a chat. There's different ways to interact with them, right? But that's the value of a human being. It's the relationship that you create. And that's the one thing that I think AI is not going to replace yet. We'll see in a few years, right? But I think for now we're safe.
Yeah, sometimes we're safe. And then I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about ChatGPT therapists and how they're actually fairly good. So who knows?
Well, the thing is, therapists are like AI, right? If you interact the wrong way with them, you're not going to get what you want. If at the end of the day, you go see a therapist just because you want to hear someone telling you that must be hard for you. Well, sure. But you can also just talk to your grandmother or to ChatGPT and you'll have about the same results. If you want someone to challenge you, then you have to find the right therapist. And that's the thing with AI. You need to tell the AI that you want to be challenged, not, comforted.
If our listeners can only take one thing away from today's conversation, what would that one thing be?
What we just talked about, AI employees. I think the misunderstanding still today in companies, and sometimes, tech companies, about what AI can really do. I think there is a significant gap right now. And I think that gap is growing by the day, because you're going to have some companies that understand this, some companies that do not. And I think we are going to see a lot of replacement, because when you miss the train, you're not able to catch up. And so that's the one thing I would really encourage everyone to look into is AI is 10 times more powerful than what people think it is today. And there is a lot of things coming, and it's time to really change and adapt all the processes and the way we work.
Lovely. So on that note, thank you, Matt, for joining us on the Operations Room. If you like what you hear, please comment or subscribe, and we will see you next week.